All right. Thank you all for joining us today for our virtual media briefing. My name is Olivia Chung. I'm a communications officer at the WK Kellogg Foundation. And we're looking forward to today's discussion. So, real excited to have you. The Kellogg Foundation was founded in 1930 as an independent private foundation by the breakfast cereal innovator and entrepreneur Will Keith Kellogg, and is among one of the largest philanthropic foundations in the United States. We're driven by the vision of a world where every child has the opportunity to thrive. And so today we're convening a few of our grantees that we're so thrilled to partner with, particularly focused on the kinds of things that mothers need, especially as we're leading up to Mother's Day. And obviously mothers need lots of things, but our two particular area of focus today will be on childcare related needs and but paid family leave. So just a reminder, this event is for media only, and all of our remarks that are stated today here will be on the record. The WK Kellogg Foundation is a nonpartisan organization, and all the views that are expressed by the speakers from our grantee organizations are represented and expressed are those of the speakers. And so we're going to start off by hearing from a few of the speakers from the organizations that we work with and fund, and then we will open it up for Q&A. So just for a reminder, if you have a question, we welcome questions typed into the chat, or you are also welcome to raise your hand when we have Q&A at the end, and I'll be able to call on you to come off mute and speak if you'd like to speak then. So the order of our speakers, we're going to hear from Erin Currier. She's a senior program officer at the WK Kellogg Foundation. We'll hear from Elizabeth Gedmark, vice president at A Better Balance, and Lindsey Vigoda, national quality jobs policy director at Small Business Majority, and Donna Cooper, executive director of Children First. So we'll start off with the speakers again, and then we will move into Q&A. If you have a question that comes up as speakers are speaking, please feel free to type them, and we'll get to them after we run through all of them. So I'd like to start by introducing Erin Currier. As I said, she's a senior program officer at the Kellogg Foundation, where she oversees a portfolio of work that supports family economic security and promotes the centering of children and families in employment and government policies and programs. Erin?
Thank you so much, Olivia, and thank you all for being here. As Olivia said, the WK Kellogg Foundation is dedicated to the health and well-being of children, but we recognize that children thrive when their families and communities thrive. And right now, our economic systems don't work for everyone. So we're focused on structural and systemic changes that would make all communities equitable places of opportunity where families have the power to chart their own futures. Our grants are focused on early childhood education, health, and family economic security, all with a commitment to racial equity. And that orientation has led to our investments in the care economy, and specifically in childcare and paid family and medical leave. We know that the largest source of a family's income is wages through work. Women, and especially mothers, are critical for their family's finances. 78% of women who are prime age are in the labor force, and women currently make up primary or co-breadwinners in half of married couple families. And there's a reason for that, because very few families can achieve economic security if they only have one adult working. But care is the work that makes all other work possible. Parents and mothers rely on childcare in order to be in the labor force. And paid family and medical leave is often the thing that keeps them in the labor force, not only when they welcome a new child into their home, but also if that child gets sick or if they do. We also know that early care environments are critical for children's development, for their health, and their well-being over the long haul. Children who are in high-quality, culturally congruent care environments have better educational and health outcomes over the course of their lives. In the first 1,000 days of a child's life, their brains can be creating up to 1,000 new neural connections every second. This is such a powerful time, and we owe it to our children and to our society to make the most of it. So our grants focus on state and federal policy advocacy, organizing, narrative change, and corporate engagement to make sure that families have access to high quality early learning environments and to promote paid family and medical leave for all Americans. We are so thrilled to be joined by three of our most amazing grantees in this space and really proud to walk alongside them as they contribute to these efforts in these spaces. Thanks.
Thanks, Erin. So now I'd like to turn it to the first of our grantee speakers. We're going to hear from Elizabeth Gedmark. She's Vice President at A Better Balance. And at A Better Balance, her work helps to leverage the power of the law to help families suffering from discrimination at work and to advance more family-friendly laws and policies, particularly in the South. But they are a national organization. So we'd love to hear from Elizabeth next. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for your powerful words, Erin. A Better Balance has been proud to lead efforts to advance paid family and medical leave at the federal, state, and local level, and launched and led the successful campaign to pass the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act and led in passing the Pump for Nursing Mothers Act as well. And I'm very excited to speak with you this morning about what moms need this Mother's Day. So Better Balance runs a free and confidential legal helpline where we hear every day from workers who have suffered discrimination or were denied paid leave and face serious health or financial consequences as a result. For example, Maria, a housekeeper in Mississippi, called our helpline and was shocked to learn that her company did not provide any paid family or medical leave. And without a state mandated program in Mississippi, she did not have a right to paid leave to recover from childbirth and bond with her baby. Maria told us it will be challenging to survive without income during that time. The United States is one of only 2 countries globally that provides no paid parental leave benefit of any kind. Nationwide, only 27% of private sector workers receive paid family leave to bond with a new child or care for a seriously ill family member. The numbers are much, much worse for low-income earners. This Mother's Day, nearly 1 in 4 mothers will return to work within just 2 weeks of giving birth, usually citing financial reasons. Paid family and medical leave is associated with better health for mothers, including a lower risk of postpartum depression and increasing the likelihood of breastfeeding initiation and duration. Paid family leave is also tied to a reduction in infant mortality. This means that paid family and medical leave is a key part of addressing our country's maternal and infant health crisis, including addressing shameful racial disparities, where Black mothers and infants are more likely to die in this country than their white counterparts. Despite the stalling at the national level so far, we are excited by the momentum in the states where they have stepped in and acted themselves. 13 states and Washington, D.C. now have paid family and medical leave on the books, benefiting millions of workers and their families. We've also seen momentum even in red states for providing paid family and medical leave for their public sector workers. However, we need a federal program, the Family Act. We've been encouraged by some recent signs of progress on the issue in Congress, such as the bipartisan working group issuing a request for information recently. In A Better Balance's response, we highlighted the success of many state programs in proving that a federal model is necessary and will work for both workers and employers. It is unclear what will come out of this group, but it is clear that ensuring moms don't have to go back to work days after having a baby and are able to take care of newborn infants has bipartisan appeal. So does providing paid leave for expecting moms experiencing complicated pregnancies who are unable to work. And by the way, people can also agree on the need for paid leave for adults to care for their moms and other loved ones when they have serious medical needs. Some of those folks caring for their moms may be high school and college seniors who are graduating this month and starting their careers. Other graduates are moms themselves. We know that young people especially need paid family and medical leave in their workplaces to thrive and are particularly vulnerable when they don't have it. Finally, this year will also mark the first Mother's Day when moms can rely on the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, which went into effect in June of last year. Critical protection to keep expecting moms healthy and economically secure while working. While the law doesn't guarantee paid time off, it does guarantee job protection for pregnant and postpartum workers who need reasonable accommodations for things like a stool to sit on, light duty, leave to recover from childbirth, pre and postnatal appointments, and accommodations for maternal mental health conditions. No longer can expecting and new moms be pushed off the job for needing these modest accommodations to keep working. Workers will also no longer have to choose between breastfeeding their baby and their careers, thanks to the Pump Act, which also went into effect last year. These laws demonstrate that progress at the federal level on vital issues is possible for women and families. And timely, the Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission recently issued final rules for the PWFA, providing essential clarity to workers to understand their rights. Workers need to know their rights under the new regulations and should call a Better Balances helpline with any questions or when in need of legal assistance. There is much work ahead to ensure robust enforcement of the law. ABB not only led the fight to pass it, we're now doubling down on making sure the law works for moms. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So just as a reminder for folks, I'm putting the names of our speakers and their titles and organizations in the chat in case you need to pull some of that. But it is also in the advisory along with their full bios as well. And then I also wanted to just mention that some of the resources that our speakers are mentioning, we will follow up with you via email to make sure that you have links and information like about the hotline that Elizabeth mentioned. And if you have any questions about things that we don't send to you, please feel free to follow up with us after that as well. So next we're going to turn to Lindsey Vigoda, who's the National Quality Jobs Policy Director at Small Business Majority. Small Business Majority is a national small business organization that empowers America's diverse entrepreneurs to build a thriving and equitable economy. And in this role, Lindsey is working to promote policies such as paid family leave and childcare to support access to quality jobs. Lindsey?
Thank you so much. Like Olivia said, my name is Lindsey Vigoda. I'm the National Quality Jobs Policy Director of Small Business Majority. Small Business Majority is the voice of over 85,000 small businesses, more than 2/3 of which are women-owned. Small businesses are the heart of America's economy, and women are the heart of many small businesses. But as we approach Mother's Day, I'm here to explain why the fight for paid leave and affordable childcare is not just a women's issue. It's not just a parent's issue. It's also a small business issue. And if we don't establish a nationwide paid family and medical leave program, we'll never reach our nation's fullest potential. This isn't theoretical. It's a fact for entrepreneurs like Carrie Martin Haley, who shows us exactly what happens when small businesses have no choice but to put caregiving ahead of customers. Carrie is the owner of Summit Sustainable Goods, a zero-waste package-free retailer based in the Denver metro area. Like many entrepreneurs, Carrie started her business from home during the COVID-19 pandemic. As her enterprise grew, she hoped to open a storefront by 2024. But when she became a mom last year, she didn't yet have access to Colorado's forthcoming paid leave program, a fact that squashed those dreams of having a storefront because her income was stalled while taking time for her growing family. And now that Carrie is the primary caregiver, the time she can put into her business is down to the moments when her partner or other family members are able to watch her child. And as for that storefront, Carrie says the cost of childcare is like taking on a second mortgage, so her plans for a brick and mortar shop are on hold indefinitely. Carrie's experience is the norm, not the exception. In fact, Small Business Majority's latest polling found that 59% of small business owners said the lack of affordable, accessible childcare is an impediment to their business growth, putting a strain on their personal lives, their workforce, and their livelihood. Somehow in a country where a new flat screen TV can be bought for less than $100, American workers are still not federally guaranteed a single paid day off when they need to care for a new child, recover from a medical procedure, or look after a sick family member. This reality ignores the fact that benefits of paid leave laws are clear and wide-ranging. Not only do they improve health outcomes and economic security, They provide significant bottom line benefits for small businesses by taking the burden of this benefit off small employers while making it easier for them to attract and retain employees. When we're living in a world of Amazons and Walmarts, entrepreneurs are constantly strained to compete with these large corporations. Paid leave would help level the playing field so that the true heart of community, small business owners, can not only survive, but they can also thrive. In the absence of a federal paid leave program, 13 states and the District of Columbia have stepped up to address this problem. Among them is Colorado, where I'm proudly born and raised. In 2020, Colorado voters enthusiastically supported a ballot measure to create a state paid leave program that launched this year on January 1st. Thus far, there's no evidence that Colorado's paid leave law has been anything but a positive impact on small business growth. In fact, Colorado has been a leader in small business expansion, with hundreds of business filings in Denver alone in the first 4 months of this year. Had this program been implemented when Carrie had her first child last year, her dreams of having that brick and mortar might have come to fruition. But we can't leave it all up to the states. Small Business Majority's research has consistently found that small business owners strongly support increased investments in federal legislation that would create a national paid leave program. We encourage Congress to consider paid leave programs that mirror the Family Act and to include small business perspectives every step of the way to ensure the needs of our nation's largest job providers are met. Entrepreneurs are the lifeline of America. Small businesses are 99% of the businesses in our country. They are our innovators, our job creators, and our community leaders. But lack of access to paid leave and quality childcare are consistent barriers to success. Small Business Majority's research found that 39% of small business owners have missed out on opportunities, and 26 have had to close their businesses because of childcare challenges. This is why we must pass policies that support and encourage small business ownership for everybody, not just those who can access childcare or take unpaid leave. Not just for small business owners like Carrie, not just for parents, but for all of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsey. And I should also mention for folks who are interested in speaking with workers or business owners who can speak to this directly and firsthand, our grantee organizations also have connections to folks like that as well. Next, I'd like to introduce Donna Cooper. She's Executive Director of Children First. Children First in Pennsylvania works to improve the lives of the region's children by developing initiatives and advocating for quality healthcare, childcare, public education, and family stability. And there's a lot of exciting movement happening in Pennsylvania. So Donna, please feel free.
Thank you. And just want to say that we are active in trying to make sure that we build the will in the across the country to enact paid family and medical leave. And one of the things we know in America is federal legislation or federal policy change is often in response to what is called the laboratory of democracy, which is the states. And so we're hoping that Pennsylvania joins the ranks of the 13 states in the District of Columbia very soon to have a paid leave program, increasing the momentum that mothers and fathers can experience in the country in terms of access to these benefits, these critical benefits. Right here in Pennsylvania, 2/3 of the employees in this state do not have paid family and medical leave. Those who work for large companies in Pennsylvania do. And most of the large companies that we speak with in Pennsylvania tell us that they offer these benefits with the goal of attracting the best and brightest to their companies. They enjoy a competitive advantage here in the talent pool, in the talent fight, in finding great workers. And it really speaks to the point that Lindsey made. It does restrain entrepreneurship by not having access to these programs because small businesses cannot shoulder this cost alone. In fact, 70% of companies in PA don't offer paid leave. They are medium and small businesses in our state, and they are having a very hard time finding workers because 4 of our 6 surrounding states, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland, already have paid family leave programs on the books, and they are succeeding in attracting workers that live on our borders to their companies. It explains why recently some very large businesses in Pennsylvania have begun to lean in and ask our state lawmakers to do what these other states have done and pass a paid leave program. So companies that are here with large operations, whose names you as reporters might be familiar with, are Patagonia and Duolingo, and even companies in the insurance sector like Sun Life and Shivani. But I will say that we also have been hearing an outpouring from small businesses who have signed on to letters to the lawmakers in Pennsylvania, urging them to give them the competitive advantage that large businesses have by enacting a state paid leave program. We have leaders also in our insurance sector and our employee benefit sector, and they are eager to see this measure passed in Pennsylvania, because so many of their clients are saying, my employees need paid leave. My employees need family and medical leave, and particularly to keep and attract young women to their companies. These companies are asking their employee benefits brokers and their insurers to put these benefits in their packages. And an individual company can't afford to do this alone. That's why a universal paid leave program at the state level or the federal level is important, because it makes it affordable for all businesses. Now, we're a purple state, and our measure in Pennsylvania, called the Family Care Act, enjoys strong bipartisan support. As had already been stated, there's really no partisanship when it comes to paid leave. And in fact, we've looked into that deeply and asked super voters in the Republican Party what they think of paid leave. And they are very clear, nearly 70% saying they want to see the state pass a paid leave program, because it is very important to them and to themselves, not just intellectually, but to themselves, to be able to care for a loved one and stay out of poverty, where they or people they know would become dependent on public benefits without paid leave. And this is not a far-fetched risk. In Bucks County, PA, a battleground in the upcoming national elections and state elections, it's a suburban county right adjacent to Philadelphia. A 911 dispatcher delivered her baby, and baby sadly needed to be in the ICU for an extended period of time, and then afterwards she needed to leave her job to take care of her baby for a while. And the dispatcher used up her sick leave. And after that, she had to contemplate selling her home to be able to afford to care for her baby, because she couldn't return to work. Instead of selling her home, she turned to the United Way for charity care. And the United Way gave her money to tide things over until she could return to her job. Now, she was lucky she could get her job back. If not, her next step was welfare, SNAP, and Medicaid. And she's horrified by her experience, and so is the United Way, that their limited resources needed to be used in the case where there's a vacuum of policy that should be helping every mother and father be able to care for their baby after pregnancy. In the Pennsylvania Senate, our bill has got the strong support of a Republican who is the chair of the Labor and Industry Committee, which is the committee of jurisdiction for this bill. And I say that to point out that there's bipartisan support behind this measure. In our House, while the measure is led by a Democrat, our House is a majority Democrat. Our Republican co-sponsor, Casey Tomlinson, also from Bucks County, is the lead on this, and she's dogged to support this measure because she watched her siblings not be able to get paid leave and having to lose income post-pregnancy, and it infuriated her, and she wanted to do something about that. And in fact, we've heard from many House and Senate members that watching family members not have access to paid leave when they as elected officials do has catalyzed them to take this action. We are looking forward to the Family Care Act moving. There's 51 bipartisan sponsors in the House, and just in December received an overwhelming 107 votes, Republicans and Democrats, to get it to passage. Now, with Mother's Day approaching, our American Academy of Pediatrics chapters in Pennsylvania just met with lawmakers this week, and they made the case for the importance to babies and mothers for providing ample paid family and medical leave. And you heard Erin talk about that at the top of the meeting. They also pointed out that a startling 50% of all pregnancy-related deaths happen in the first year post-delivery, hitting home the need to take care of our mothers so that they can raise their children. In fact, the research also shows that paid leave protects babies because mothers and fathers can concentrate on bonding with their infant, so important, and avoid the stress of returning to work without enough support, which can sadly, when that isn't available, be a gateway to abuse or family violence. So let me close by sharing with you one more story. In Western PA, we have a terrific mother, young mother. She lives in Oil City. The name tells it all. Everybody in that town works for oil. And this young mother, who was working 60 hours a week, suddenly in 2019 got diagnosed with lymphoma. And she had been trying to get pregnant for a long time. And ironically, after receiving her lymphoma test, positive for lymphoma, she also found that she was pregnant. And she had to leave her job to stay healthy during her pregnancy for obvious reasons. Now, she was lucky and able to delay her cancer treatments until it was safe for her to have a baby. And after delivering a beautiful baby girl, she started radiation in earnest. And her husband, who's an oil rig worker, he gets no sick time or vacation time. So post-pregnancy, it was very hard on them. There were many visits to the ER with the baby and the mom. And it caused him to have to lose his job, and the family had no resources. And she describes her reality this way. We are trying to get by during the that never happens time in our lives and the that never happens situations that occur to families every day. She says paid family and medical leave will support individuals and families during these unimaginable times. And we at Children First don't think that anyone should have to imagine these times. And we are eager to be working and in partnership with A Better Balance and Small Business Majority and hundreds of organizations across our state and our country who are trying to make sure that babies have a healthy first year, that mothers and fathers are healthy with them, and that we increase the economic prosperity of families by making paid leave universally available. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Donna. So we can open up to questions and answers for our speakers now. For folks who'd like to ask any questions, you can either drop them in the chat or you can hit the reactions button and raise your hand, and I'll just call on you to introduce yourself. And I did want to start with one question of our own, if that's okay. But if folks want to go ahead and put some questions in the chat or raise your hand, or you can also feel free to DM me. That would be great. And just a reminder that everything is on the record. We do have a recording of this that we can make available after the fact as well. And then all of our speakers also will be available for follow-up questions and for any additional resources and things you might want to find out more about after this briefing is over. Okay, so I did, one of the things that I wanted to mention was that Small Business Majority recently released some polling related to affordable childcare and the need for it and kind of where small business owners are when it comes to childcare in particular. And Lindsey, I was wondering if you could speak to that poll a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. And as a reminder, the link to the polling is in the press release or the press advisory. But Small Business Majority released a poll last month all around business ownership and the intersection with childcare. And the findings weren't surprising, they weren't new, but I'll read some high-level findings for you all. And it's good to note that, you know, small business ownership, not only are childcare providers small business owners, but also we need diverse childcare community to have entrepreneurship. And the numbers show that. The report shows that that small business owners report that their own childcare issues have forced themselves to take time away from businesses. 56% of business owners have reported that. 39% of small business owners have reported that they have lost out on business opportunities because of issues related to childcare. 28% have stated that they need additional help and need to hire additional help to run their business due to childcare issues, and 26% have had to shut down their own business operations and rejoin the workforce because of childcare issues. And this is making small businesses struggle across the board. Small businesses report that they've experienced lower productivity, unable to operate longer hours, which we know is needed in entrepreneurship. Because of childcare issues, they've lost revenues or earnings, and they've had to hire temporary workers when their employees are facing childcare issues. So not only is this affecting entrepreneurs themselves, but it's affecting their workforce. And something really noteworthy is that 62% of business owners have said employees have had to take time away, unplanned work absences, because of childcare issues in their employees' lives. And that is quite a struggle because, as we know, since the COVID-19 pandemic, we've heard over and over again, workforce is an issue for business ownership, large and small. And if unplanned absences are occurring for small businesses, that's affecting their bottom line, that's affecting their ability to be productive and also create jobs for their own communities. So those are just some of the high level points, but I would definitely suggest you check out our polling that was released last month, sorry.
In April. And we can I'll drop that the link to the press release about that in the chat as well. So just a reminder, feel free to chat any questions or raise your hand, or you can send them privately to me. We have a question here about, which I think some of our speakers have spoken to, but, maybe just reiterating again at a high level, if nothing changes in this policy space, what are the realities for businesses, families, moms, children, and how are they making it work as it is now?
You want me to, I could just start locally. One of the things that's happening is more governments are beginning to say I don't know about where you all are, but Philadelphia, for instance, has 1 in 5 public jobs empty. So we have 20% of our public positions empty. The state government is a little bit higher, 23%. And some of our suburban counties are even higher, closer to 30%. And so one of the things that is happening is that the public sector itself is beginning to offer paid leave benefits as a way to compete in the labor market. Now, what that's going to do is make it harder for private businesses to hire. And so it's very important that they do that, and they're doing that with the goal of recruiting young parents into vacant public jobs who hopefully will be there, because most public jobs people stay for a long time. But in this period of labor shortage, it's certainly going to drive up the cost of hiring, and it's going to decrease the talent pool for private business. So the best thing for individuals who are really committed to a vibrant private sector-led economy would be to expand, make paid leave possible so that it's not just the public sector that's doing a good job competing. The second thing is that we hear from women regularly here that they're dropping out of the labor force. Until their kids are able to start school, they just can't afford to work. Between the paid leave and the childcare, they can't afford it, especially if they've had 2 kids. So we then worsen the labor market competition. Again, so a huge benefit to paid leave is increasing the capacity for individuals to return to the workforce and take jobs, and reducing the cost on some businesses and the disadvantage on small and medium-sized businesses in the current labor market. It also, I will say, I wanted to say one other thing for the mothers. It is affecting their lifetime employment earnings. And that data is very, compelling and has decades behind it of women who over their lifetime, because they didn't have paid family and medical leave, because they had to take time to not be in the workforce, their lifetime earnings are less. Though Social Security is less, their ability to be independent is less. So if for nothing else, to have healthy, stable families and women who are able to support themselves into retirement, it's a critical policy.
Thank you, Donna. Elizabeth, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that for far too many families in states that don't have a paid family and medical leave policy, they are not making it work. Moms and babies are dying. There's a maternal and infant health crisis in this country. And as I said, it is exacerbated and so much worse for Black moms and Black babies. If we do not act with great urgency and expediency, then this will continue. And I fear it could even get worse. Babies are going to daycare when they are a couple weeks old. They do not even have immunizations. They're not on regular feeding patterns. Moms are giving up breastfeeding far sooner than they would like to. They're not taking the time for their bodies to heal after major abdominal surgery. And economically, as Donna just said, families are not, they are not making it work. Even in terms of scraping by, that may mean something like declaring bankruptcy. It might mean that they are behind on their rent payments, their car payments. They're digging themselves out of debt for months and years to come just for having a baby. And this is supposedly in states that, say that they are supportive of moms and babies, when actually the opposite is true, and that you see much worse health and economic impacts for moms and babies in the very states that declare that they have a stated interest.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And Lindsay, you want to add to that as well?
Yeah, just to mirror everything that Elizabeth and Donna said is so extremely important. And from the entrepreneurship lens, if we don't pass, laws that support childcare and paid leave, we're not going to see entrepreneurship and diverse entrepreneurs, because the folks who will be able the corporations that will be able to provide those benefits aren't small businesses. They're not the mom and pop shops on Main Street. They're not even your blacksmith in your neighborhood. Those are the Amazons and Walmarts of the world, those large corporations. And without entrepreneurship, without small business ownership, what is our heart of community? What is our character? What is our culture? And so everything Elizabeth and Donna said is completely right. And I will just add, if we don't pass laws that support mothers, and if we don't pass laws that support women-owned businesses, we will not see entrepreneurship, and we will lose our character as a country.
Thank you, Lindsay. Okay, I have another question from the reporters. Can the speakers comment on the most recent CDC report on the US birth rate declining to the lowest level in nearly a century? Can we assume this is in some part related to systemic issues around childcare and lack of federal paid leave? Who would like to take that first? Elizabeth?
Well, I can speak just a bit more broadly in terms of oftentimes we get the question of how is it that in so many other countries there has been a successful passage of paid family and medical leave, where often for decades that has been on the books and is really a part of the fabric of their society, and that is because of the birth rate. So in so many other countries, they have seen declining birth rates. Italy, Japan, some other countries. And the problem, of course, is that if you don't have enough of a birth rate to have younger workers, then you don't have an economy. My economist co-panelist can speak more to that aspect of it. But what they have found in those other countries is that you need policies like that are supportive of moms and of families if you want to get your birth rate to increase to actually drive your economy. So I'm not exactly going to speculate on the newest data here in America with the CDC, because it can sometimes get more complicated. But I will say that we have heard from folks who are concerned about the birth rate and want to make sure that what has happened in some other countries doesn't happen here. And the way to do that and drive our economy is with things like paid family medical leave and robust childcare. And I defer to my other co-panelists for more.
Yeah, I would just say on a ground level, we hear regularly from young families, so they're partnered up, that they are not going to have children, or they're delaying and will have one child because it's all they can afford, because of the cost of childcare and the inability for them to take off of work and take care of a baby. We hear that all the time. So I agree with Elizabeth. It's hard to speculate on the root causes of what we're seeing on the birth rate, but it does not surprise me because it's what we hear all the time. And we're out in the community all the time. And women of every race and every class are saying this to us.
And just to piggyback on that, again, hard to speculate, but I do know that right now we're living in a time where entrepreneurship is booming, and people are going to have to start and are starting to make decisions. Do I want to create a business? Do I want to start a business? Do I want to grow my current business? Or do I want to have a family? And in our current country, that is a very hard choice to make, and a choice that is goes to the bottom line of a lot of people's families as well.
Thanks so much. Okay, we have a question from Alexandra Olson with the Associated Press. Alexandra, if you want to unmute yourself, you can go ahead and speak.
I thank you for this briefing. I wanted to ask Elizabeth Gedmark a question about something that she mentioned. She was talking about possible positive signs about the momentum for a federal paid family leave law. And you said that there had been a request for information from a bipartisan group. So I wanted to ask if you could elaborate a bit on that. What request was made and to what group? And then you said that it wasn't sure what would come out of this group. And I wanted to make sure I understood what group you were talking about. Is this the bipartisan group? Or yeah, if you could elaborate more on that, sounded interesting.
Yes, thank you so much for the great question, and apologies for some of the vagueness there. Wasn't sure how much folks wanted to get into, but really excited to do so. So there in Congress, there's a bipartisan working group, which is made up of legislators. So those folks in the House as well as the Senate, and I'd be happy to send more information about the exact members who are leading that bipartisan working group. And what they did, this was in, I believe, January, was put out what's called a request for information, or an RFI. And they were really asking the public, and they were quite broad in this. So they wanted to hear from families. They wanted to hear from organizations such as ourselves, other stakeholders, businesses, and they wanted to find out what sort of framework people are looking for paid family and medical leave. They even wanted to know if people had recommendations and research around how to pay for these sorts of benefits. They really wanted to know the details and to dig in to what makes a good program. And that's where I said that our focus had been on what's been working in these 13 states in Washington, D.C., and what are the lessons learned that we can pull into that. So as I said, in terms of the bit of lack of clarity, that we have not, the responses were due pretty recently, and I can even put in the chat our response, but we have not yet heard back draft of piece legislation or a report. They have released a framework, but that was actually before the request for information. So in many ways, we're just still sort of waiting to see what's going to happen with this working group. But it's an encouraging sign nonetheless that there is bipartisan support around this. And we are, seeing that in some of the states as well. And I know that you had mentioned me, but I do want to pause and make sure that my amazing colleagues here get a chance to weigh in as well, especially on this bipartisan question. And I'll put in the chat a couple more background pieces for you so you can just learn more about the group while they're chatting.
Yeah, I would maybe Donna, if you want to speak to a bit about the bipartisan support that you're seeing in Pennsylvania. I think it's a really interesting example of what we are seeing nationally as well.
Absolutely. Earlier this week, there was as I mentioned, the American Academy of Pediatrics met with lawmakers. Four major Senate Republicans spoke at their public event that day on paid leave in the PA Senate, in the PA House. Not only did the bill move, but Republican women lawmakers added provisions to the bills. Interestingly, for the purpose of Mother's Day, one was for safe leave, where women who are victims of domestic abuse and need to protect themselves, that leave would be counted as part of the paid family and medical leave package. And the other was for veterans leave, where women who are veterans who are deploying able to take some time, like a week off, to manage for deployment or return with their child before they go back to work. And these are both measures that were advanced by Republican champions of paid leave. And I will say that in talking with insurance companies and brokers who want to see these measures passed, they're working very hard to align what's happening at the state level to be as uniform as possible so that they can create a good template for a federal bill. And a Better Balance has been a critical advisor to many states in that work. And so there's also the press from the private sector to have the federal government step in, because a patchwork is expensive for the private sector to manage. Now, many states are going to move forward independent of what the federal government does because of their own labor market demands and the needs of mothers. But it is urgent to increase the efficiency of these kinds of measures by a universal policy.
Great. Lindsey, unless you have something to add, I do want to ask just one. Go ahead.
I'll just say something very quick. It is noteworthy that in Colorado, paid leave did pass by ballot measure. And so it wasn't the state legislature, it was voters, and voters are extremely diverse in Colorado. And it passed with huge margins. So something noteworthy.
Great. And Alexandra, I wanted to make sure that you got your question answered and if you had anything to follow up with.
Thank you. I guess if there's time, the follow-up would be just where you see the any sticking points, right? I assume it's how to pay for this is what it's been in the past, but that would be my follow-up question.
Yes, I would say that how to pay for it is going to be, you know, something that's much discussed and will need to be analyzed further and could potentially be sort of a sticking point, as you put it. And I think also even just ensuring that this is really a comprehensive program where every worker in the country is covered, and that this is not some sort of a voluntary program where employers are just, you know, voluntarily able to access it, because that is not a real paid family medical leave program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a question from Claudia. I believe this is Claudia from the Austin American Statesman. Could you please tell us more about how the state lab of democracy affects federal policy?
I'll just jump in, having worked for a governor, that, you know, Justice Brandeis actually is the one who coined the phrase that the states are laboratories of democracy. They're places where complex, in his estimation, social policy can get tested. So by the time it's embraced at the federal level, it reflects the unique needs of states' differences, and also has been practiced. So we know what we're doing. And in many ways, different things that are happening, whether it's from energy policy or social policy, have been tested at the state level before they become embraced. And some of those are like unemployment programs and workers' comp programs. These are examples of places where states have been the laboratories of democracy. And a place that has this as sort of its own mantra is the National Governors Association. The governors are very eager to be testing strategies together. So they band together and they test elements, or there are multiple states taking a different approach. And that is happening on paid family and medical leave, where, as we know, there are already 13 states, hopefully 14 soon, and the District of Columbia. And one of the levers in this is typically that when something gets to about 17 or 18 states, it's really ripe for federal action, but we do not need to wait for that. We can move now. The lab experiments have been underway for many, many years on paid leave. And we have plenty of expertise in the private market to know how to do this efficiently. And we have plenty of experts nationally, like Small Business Majority and a Better Balance, to advise the Congress as well as the insurance sectors on how to do this well.
Elizabeth, was
just
there anything else you wanted to add? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. I'll use this to plug our new, brand new interactive tool, which is really exciting. So the 13 different states and then Washington, D.C. Have different components to them. They're incredibly complex, and my colleagues have done an amazing job really parsing and digging into the details. So this tool will allow policymakers and stakeholders to actually compare and contrast different states. And at the federal level, we expect that they will use this tool as well to say, what has been working where and who's doing what, and drawing trends, that almost every single one of these states provides at least 12 weeks. So that really is a floor. You need at least 12 weeks. That's quite clear. So I wanted to mention that since it's such a new resource. And then just one other quick response in terms of the proof is in the pudding, because I did work on the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, and we also proceeded with a state campaign that over like the course of a decade, we ended up with 30 states by the time the federal law passed that had also had state pregnant worker fairness laws or similar type laws. And what you're able to say when you have a state law is not just the laboratory of what works and doesn't work in comparison, but you're able to really have evidence and proof. And, Lindsey, I know that you can speak to this as well. So many people told us the sky would fall if you had paid family leave in each of these states. And lo and behold, California, there's very robust research on this, that right after it passed, the businesses immediately switched to actually, we love it, we like it. The sky didn't fall and it's great. So I'll stop there if Lindsey wanted to jump in as well.
Right. I think, paid leave often gets misconstrued as something that will be harmful for businesses. But not only do anecdotal stories back up that it's actually amazing and quite a lifeline, so does research. And we're constantly seeing day in, day out that businesses are struggling to compete, are struggling to even provide for themselves and their families, nevertheless, their employees. And this is a lifeline. And so, trying to change the narrative that paid leave is good for business, because it is.
Great. So I'd like to close with just one, if you could, each speaker can provide a brief answer. Thinking about Mother's Day, and if you could choose one gift to give to mothers and families this Mother's Day, what would that be? Maybe we can start with Elizabeth.
I'm going to cheat and not just choose one, but a comprehensive paid family and medical leave program at the federal level, and for moms to know their rights under state paid leave and the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act and PUMP Act.
And Donna?
I would say the enactment of a robust paid family and medical leave program for mothers and infants, as well as universal affordable childcare so that they can remain and work.
Lindsey?
And I will round it out by saying access to quality and affordable childcare is an amazing gift to give all mothers, all caregivers, which also allows them the gift of choice when it comes to their career. So a gift of choice as well.
That's great. Erin, did you want to add anything to that as well?
No, I think our speakers covered it all beautifully. Thank you.
Wonderful. And Claudia, I know that you had an outstanding question. We can follow up with you afterwards as well to answer that. But I wanted to thank everyone for being part of this briefing. We are so excited to feature our grantees and to have you all join us. We will follow up via email so that you have everyone's contact information, links to resources, and link to the recording as well. So that concludes our briefing. Thank you so much, and we're looking forward to working with you again in the future.